Hi everyone, welcome back to another edition of Quarantine Cooking with Zach. Today we're going to make 30-minute rolls. Just like the focaccia recipe that we did a couple weeks ago, what you do is you add your oil, your water, your warm water, and your yeast and your sugar, and then you let it sit. So you get this frothy mixture. I'll go ahead also and I'll drop the recipe in the comments so you know which recipe I'm using. There are a bunch of 30-minute roll recipes. They're all about the same. There's not a whole lot different. Some softened butter and a lightly beaten egg. And now I'm gonna go ahead and start adding flour and I'm gonna mix this up. So this is actually a double recipe of the 30-minute rolls, and we tend to, when we bake fresh bread, we tend to eat a lot of it. So I will often just make a double batch. That way we can eat, as we're baking, and making dinner, we can eat some, and then for dinner we can have some as well. I also don't pour in all of my flour to start. I pour in about 3/4 of it, and then I add to it as I'm going, as I'm mixing, to get just the right consistency for what I'm going for. And it's a little sticky and it's a little messy, but as you work it and as you add in a little more flour, it'll pull away, and you'll have a perfect loaf ready to go. I've added about most of my flour. You can see it's starting to pull away from the bowl itself. So it's about ready for me to throw it onto the counter and knead it for a while. You can see everything's pretty much pulled away. I'll go ahead and drop this on the counter, and I'll give it a good 10 or so minute knead. So as I knead this, again, I just fold it back under my palm and just work it. If it starts to stick to the counter or your cutting board, you can just add a little bit more flour. Just lightly dust it. And I mentioned it in the focaccia bread video that we don't have a bread mixer, or we don't have a Cuisinart or anything like that. So don't let that stop you from making bread. You can make bread. You don't need a mixer. We had a KitchenAid mixer for years, and we used it and until it broke, and we couldn't fix it, and sort of never bought another one. And now we just use a bowl in our hands, and I think it does a fine job. Yeah, it's a little more work. Your shoulders and your arms will get a little tired, especially on a larger loaf like this, or if you're making bread, but get a little quarantine exercise, I guess. So I'll continue to do this for a few more minutes, and then we'll let it proof in the oven for about 10 minutes. Okay, so since this is a double batch, we're gonna get about 32 of these rolls. And all I do is I take the dough and I just keep dividing it in half until you get 32. Once you get the rolls cut out, you just roll it in your hands, tucking under the sides until you get a ball, and then go ahead and set it on your pan. I like to put them close together, and then they kind of bake together, which gives it a nice texture on all the sides. You can weigh them out if you want. That way you get rolls that are identical. I'm not that precise with it. So we'll get some rolls that are on the smaller end, some that are a little bit bigger, and that's okay. I'm gonna go ahead and proof these in the oven. I set the temperature to 100, turn it on for a couple minutes, and then turn it off. I will cover it with this tea towel, put it in there for about 10 minutes, and let them proof. I just pulled these out of the oven. They'd been proofing in there for just over 10 or so minutes. I'm going to lightly brush them with some cold milk, and then they're gonna go into a 400-degree oven for about 10 to 12 minutes or so. All right, I'm gonna put these in for about 10 to 12 minutes. Okay, there we have our dinner rolls. I'm gonna go ahead and, you don't have to do this, but no one in my home's gonna complain. I take a little bit of butter and just brush the tops of them with a little bit of butter. Here we go. We're gonna go ahead and have some risotto tonight. So we will have rolls and risotto. Thanks everybody for joining me on another episode of Quarantine Cooking with Zach. Tonight we're gonna have this truffle parmesan risotto from the Old Town Spice and Tea Merchants, and 31 30-minute rolls.